And welcome to Arizona Central, your one stop shop for everything Arizona Cardinals. Thank you for tuning into the show. We're going to recap the end of our year. We got very close here uh, in the off season. We just want to take a moment. It's been really busy and very hectic and a lot of things going on. And so we just want to take a moment and look back at the season, weeks 14 through 17, and then the playoff game that we had against the Falcons. And just kind of recap the season and give an outlook as we turn into the off season and see kind of what are our needs moving forward. Our Week 14 game was against the Seattle Seahawks, and we won 16-14 in one of those very classic battles against the Seahawks. He and I always seem to go at it, and this year I ended up having the upper hand, but just barely. This game really was all about Patrick Peterson. I think he had 2 or 3 interceptions this game and single-handedly kept me in the game. We did get 5 sacks on this game. We only allowed 88 passing yards and 69 rushing yards to go with our 4 turnovers. Our third down percentage, though, was super low, 38%, because that Seahawks defense is just very, very good, and they really got after Jimmy Garoppolo this game. You'll see that Jimmy did throw a pick. He was 18 of 30 for 234. Couldn't get any kind of rushing game going. Abdullah really struggled since coming over from the Carolina Panthers, and we really had a hard time being able to get him going. Lucky for us, though, Wilson struggled also. He was only 10 of 19 for 117 yards, 3 interceptions, and 1 touchdown. No one really shined in this game and really came to the forefront as a superstar player. Brown played okay for me, 5 receptions, 91 yards, but he didn't get into the end zone at all. Really, this was about my defense. Patrick Peterson with 2 interceptions, Matthew with an interception, McGahee with 2 forced fumbles, Keglar with a forced fumble. Keglar also had 2 sacks. The rookie really shined this past year. McGahee had 2 sacks. Really was his outstanding game as he played for an injured ball. And then Latellu actually played good this game. It was one of his only games getting me some pressure up front. But this came to a last-second touchdown, and we really were able to squeeze out of Seattle with a win. And it was a big victory for us in the moment, especially coming off the victory against the Green Bay Packers in Week 13. Week 15 had us traveling to visit the Lions, and they really manhandled us this entire game. We really had no answer for his zone. They did go very zone heavy this game, and Jimmy Garoppolo really struggled with that. They also did very well against our pass defense. 301 passing yards allowed from them. I apologize. Their rushing game played really well. I'm getting my games confused here. He had 4 takeaways. They harassed Jimmy Garoppolo all day. Novak struggled. He threw 2 picks, but Jimmy Garoppolo threw 3 picks. I had no rushing game to speak of. Mason had a big long run with 57 for him and a touchdown that really busted this game open. We made a late comeback. Jerome Brown had 8 receptions for 115 yards, but again, didn't get into the end zone. Janice threw in another 3 for 85 with a long of 36. That was a big third down that we needed. This game was really all about the Lions defense. They had 3 picks, Slay, Whitehead, and Levy. A forced fumble from Ansah with his 2 sacks. They just really harassed Jimmy Garoppolo all game. Robert Smart really stepped up this game. He had a forced fumble with a sack, 3 sacks and 2 tackles. Williamson also threw in an interception to go with Peterson's interception, but the game really wasn't as close as the score would indicate. The Lions pretty much had their way with us, and we had no answers for their zone. And that was a big loss as the Lions and I were both battling out for a playoff position late in Week 15. Week 16 didn't get any easier for us. We had another playoff team and a red-hot team in the Chargers. We fell 27-24 as they kicked a last-second field goal with time expiring. This game really turned to be just a really defensive battle with both teams really opening up in the fourth quarter. My team did really well on third down this game at 63%, and we just struggled with finding any kind of pressure are real opportunities to stop them for big plays, and they were able to get some big plays. Both of our teams are pretty close. He did allow a few more passing yards, but both teams about the same on rushing yards, and both teams really played a basically same game with each other. Simeon stepped back for the Chargers and played really well. He was 15 to 27 with 2 touchdowns. Jimmy Garoppolo had 3 touchdowns at 328 yards, but again, 2 big interceptions. That was a theme for him this season. He just struggled with turning the ball over. Archibald had a big play of 54 with a touchdown. He ended up with 101 yards and 5 receptions. Janis had another 4 for 86. Floyd had 5 for 82. And Morset even threw in a touchdown himself. Keenan Allen really was the star for the Chargers, though. 5 receptions, 97 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had his way with Patrick Peterson, who played outstanding this year and really made the Pro Bowl on a great year with over 10 interceptions. But this game was all about Keenan Allen and having his way. The Chargers did drive late, ended up getting the game-winning field goal as time expires, and that was a big victory for them and a big punch in the gut for our Cardinals, who now have dropped 2 in a row and we're struggling to hold on to that last wild card spot. Week 17 had us facing off against our rival Rams, who played exceptionally well this year. We came out with a 27-24 victory in this one as we barely escaped. We did allow a lot of rushing yards, 173 rushing yards, but Jimmy Garoppolo actually played really well. 56% on third down, but we did give up 56% on third down. 2 takeaways for both teams, and these games, again, go down to the wire. The Cardinals, I think, jumped out to a very large lead here, and the Rams made a roaring comeback, but Goff struggled with his interception and only 134 yards. Collins had his way with 101 yards. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo played well, 307 yards. Really had to go to a passing attack because Rams were shutting down that rushing game that we had at all. 14 carries for 51 yards for Abdullah, who really struggled coming over to the Cardinals. Brown had 8 receptions, 134 yards with a touchdown. Floyd, 5 for 55 and a touchdown. Archibald, 5 for 88. He turned it on these last few weeks of the season here. Ended up having some good games for us. Patrick Peterson gets him another interception. Smart with a forced fumble and a sack. Ball, coming back from injury, had a sack. And if you look over at the Rams, Quinn really had his way, getting pressure on us all day. We really put all of our attention on Donald. He's such a playmaker. We were keeping the running back in, putting it on his side to really help us with Donald. And it helped a little bit as Jimmy Garoppolo was able to have time to pass for 307 yards and 21 of 35 passing. Big victory for my Cardinals. They needed it. This got us into the playoffs. But for those great seasons and great games and big victory over the Rams, our award is the champion Atlanta Falcons. So, Wild Card Weekend is next. Wild Card Weekend had us traveling over to the Atlanta Falcons, and we fall 24-20. This game was one of those ones that still stings a lot. We only allowed 67 rushing yards. We did allow 220. I'm sorry, this is flip-flopped. We allowed too many rushing yards, 172 rushing yards. This game really came down, honestly, to the Cardinals having a very big lead and then the Falcons making a roaring comeback on some Jimmy Garoppolo interceptions. This was the worst game that Jimmy had played. 16-34, 228, a touchdown, 3 interceptions. But the reason I say it was the worst game that he had is because the 3 interceptions were some of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. The passes were not even close. They were 6 to 8 yards away from where it was supposed to go. An easy right to safety bellies waiting on them as the Falcons really were able to turn those into interceptions into points. Neal had 2 of them. Smith had another one. We were up big late in the game. An interception with a little over 2 minutes to go ended up forcing the Falcons to turn to the rushing game, and Davis made us pay. I think he had about 8 carries in a row for 50 or 40 yards and a touchdown. That gave them the lead. We got the ball back with less than 30 seconds. We ended up driving past half field, and then Jimmy throws another terrible pick. This was another instant classic playoff game, but this one stings just a bit. Abdullah struggled all day long. We did a good job of protecting Jimmy and not allowing the Atlanta Falcons rushing attack, especially Clowney, to get after us. We used the same strategy against the Rams that we used against the Falcons, where we keep running backs in and place them on the side that Clowney was coming from. That protected Jimmy, but again, really bad passes ended up leading us to a loss here. The Falcons ended up going on to win the whole thing for a back-to-back championship. And that was a look at the Atlanta Falcons season, at least our end of our season from weeks 15 on through the playoffs. Now we'll look at where our offense and defense finished. Our offense finished 21st in points, 24th in yards, 18 in passing yards, 22nd in rushing yards. A big drop off from a top 10 offensive rushing attack that we had last season. Our defense actually stepped up and played well this year. 11th in points, 15th in total yards, 6th in passing, but 22nd in rushing yards. Really gave up a ton of big gap plays where running backs just had huge holes to run through. Looking at some stats here, Jimmy Garoppolo struggled. 40 sacks on the year, 27 interceptions, 21 touchdowns, 3,800 yards, 61.1 completion percentage. Jimmy just struggled with being able to make the appropriate passes at the appropriate time. David Johnson averaged 4.1 yards a carry, while here, after shipping off, he turns into a 1,500-yard rusher. Not really sure what happened with our team. Abdullah came in and had 766 rushing yards, but only a 3.8 average. Most of his touchdowns coming with the Carolina Panthers, but a huge drop-off from what David Johnson was. We made that trade because both of these running backs, Abdullah and Johnson, were 5-year guys, and we were hoping that trading them away, they would accept 4-year deals. Neither one of them did. Morset did okay for us. He only averaged 3.1 yards, only 161 yards. 2 touchdowns were nice. But we really have to change our focus, and we'll cover that in our off-season video. But our offense has to improve this next year. John Brown, 73 receptions, over 1,000 yards. 41 was his long, 6 touchdowns. Michael Floyd, 61 for 836 and 6 touchdowns. Archibald, 53 and 4 touchdowns. Janice, 33 and 4 touchdowns. You'll see again in the offseason video that we'll cover, we're losing 2 of these 4 top guys, but we really feel like we have a good plan, and we've got it in place, and we're going to make some moves here that'll help us really improve this offseason. John Brown's still very much a playmaker and very much our number 1 receiver. Looking at the defense, Patrick Peterson had an outstanding year, 43 tackles, 12 interceptions. He really played well for us after 2 down years. On the flip side, Tyrann Mathieu struggles continue with us. Only 38 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 interceptions. He's only got 3 combined interceptions the last 2 seasons. We're going to make some moves where we move him back to the free safety position and try to see if we can put him in a better position to make tackles and to make plays for us. Eric Reed, another guy that we ended up cutting ties with, only 41 tackles, 1 sack, 4 forced fumbles, but those came all in 1 game and only 1 interception. Some of the bright spots were Santez Kegler, the rookie, with 36 tackles, 13 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. Reuben Smart came on the other side with 24 tackles, 12 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Avery Williamson, we want to expect some more for him. 4 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, only 34 tackles. Again, we're going to make some changes to our defense to help put him in better position. Lacey Barr, playing that other middle linebacker position, had 23 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. We feel like we have some playmakers, but where our struggles were was Xavier Gooden and Nero Ball, both suffered long-term injuries this year and were out for a very extended period of time. Carlos Field played admirably, as did Levon McGahee, but neither guy really stepped up to make those plays that Ball and Gooden are used to making. Star Lotulelei really struggled again. 10 tackles, 2 sacks. Not really the pressure that we were needing from the up front of our defense. We feel like we were really set with our 2 rookie and first-year defensive ends. Look for our focus to change to some interior defensive linemen, some playmaking outside linebackers, and really move some pieces around to put guys in a much better position to make plays in this upcoming season. So there you have it for the Arizona Cardinals. They finished the season 10-6. We did make some moves to free up some salary cap. We're sitting after free agency with about $15 million, looking to make a couple of more deals here. We will cover a lot of these offseason moves in our next video. But overall, it was a successful season. It's the second year in a row that we are one and done in the playoffs, losing to the Bucs last year and the Falcons this year. The bright spot is that we were right there with the champion, if we can spit it out there, the champion Falcons. We were right there with them going toe for toe, and Jimmy just threw too many interceptions, and that was really the key for the entire season. The interception turnover ratio for us was just way too high. We're going to have to really change that focus coming into the new season, but we feel like we've got a good plan. We've got a lot of competition. The NFC is going to be much better as a whole with a new crop of owners that are coming in, and they'll have an entire season and off-season under their belts. But look for us to really make those moves and make some opportunities for our defense to make plays and our passing game and rushing game to be improved. So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in for our Season 70 recap for the Arizona Cardinals. We will see you next week for our off-season outlook, and we'll cover exactly what the moves that we plan on making and where we plan on going with our free agency moves, and a quick look at the draft as it will be coming up this week. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next week on Arizona Central.